Picture this. It's the late 1980s. Ozzy Osbourne is one of the biggest names in rock, and his band is in flux. Jake E. Lee, the guitarist who had carried Ozzy's sound after Randy Rhoads' tragic passing, is gone. The spot is wide open, and every guitarist on the scene knows this could be the chance of a lifetime. But here's the twist almost nobody knows. One of the names that floated to the top of the list wasn't a household name yet. It wasn't Zakk Wylde, not at first. It was a young, hungry guitarist from Long Island named Al Pitrelli. At the time, he was still carving out a reputation in New York, hustling to make ends meet and chasing any opportunity that would get him closer to the big leagues. Then one phone call changed everything. Producer Max Norman, the same man behind Ozzy's early classics Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, vouched for Pitrelli directly to Sharon Osbourne. Just like that, Al's name was thrown into the same conversation as legends. Think about the weight of that moment. A relatively unknown player suddenly being considered to stand alongside Randy Rhoads and Jake E. Lee in Ozzy's band. And here's where it gets even more surreal. Pitrelli didn't just hear about it secondhand, he actually ran into Ozzy and Sharon in New York City face to face and introduced himself. For a few minutes, this young kid who barely had a foot in the door stood in front of the Prince of Darkness and his manager, knowing his life could be about to change forever. What came next would shape Pitrelli's mindset for the rest of his career. He didn't get the gig, but that brief encounter set off a chain of events that would lead him to Alice Cooper, David Lee Roth, Megadeth, Savatage, and eventually the creation of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, one of the most successful touring acts in the world. This is the untold story of the time Al Pitrelli almost became Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist, and how missing out on that role may have been the best thing that ever happened to him. Before his name ever crossed Ozzy Osbourne's table, Al Pitrelli was just another hungry musician grinding it out in New York. Born on Long Island, he left the Berklee School of Music in Boston during the early 80s, chasing opportunities wherever he could find them. He wasn't living the glamorous rock star life yet, far from it. He was hustling, taking gigs, recording sessions, and working his way into circles where the right connection could change everything. Pitrelli's raw talent was obvious to anyone who saw him play. He had technical skill, but more importantly, he had versatility. He could shred when needed, but he also understood melody and arrangement, qualities that made him stand out to producers and fellow musicians. Even though he wasn't a household name, word about his playing was starting to spread among industry insiders. This is what eventually caught the attention of Max Norman, a producer who had already worked on some of Ozzy's most legendary albums. Norman saw something in Pitrelli, something that told him this kid might have the chops and the personality to step into one of the most intimidating roles in heavy metal. And just like that, Pitrelli's name went from the small New York club circuit to the inner circle of the Osbournes. The turning point came with one unexpected phone call. Max Norman, the producer who helped shape Ozzy's early sound on Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, reached out to Pitrelli in the mid-80s. Norman told him he was personally recommending him to Sharon Osbourne as a possible replacement for Jake E. Lee. For Pitrelli, it was almost unreal. One day, he was just another guitarist trying to make ends meet. The next, he was suddenly being mentioned in the same breath as Randy Rhoads and Jake E. Lee. These were the guitarists who had already cemented their place in rock history, and now his name was in that conversation. The call didn't guarantee anything. It wasn't a promise of the job, just an opportunity to be looked at. But in the world of rock and roll, even being considered was massive. For a young musician still building his career, this was the kind of validation that said, "You're not just good, you're good enough for Ozzy Osbourne." Not long after Max Norman put his name forward, fate threw Pitrelli into an unforgettable moment. He happened to cross paths with Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne in New York City. For a young guitarist who had just learned his name was being considered, this was surreal, like walking straight into a dream. Most people in that situation might have been too nervous to say a word, but Pitrelli walked up, introduced himself, and thanked Sharon for even putting his name in the mix. He told her he was honored just to be considered, and that no matter what happened, he wished them the best. Sharon shook his hand warmly, Ozzy gave a nod and a smile, and for a brief few minutes, Pitrelli was face to face with the very people who could change his career forever. Looking back, Pitrelli describes that moment not with bitterness, but with gratitude. He remembered Sharon's genuine smile and Ozzy's kindness, proof that even rock legends could still show humility and respect. It wasn't an audition, it wasn't a contract, but for Pitrelli, it was validation that he had climbed high enough to stand in that room. Just when it seemed like Pitrelli might be inching closer to the role, another name came into the picture, and it changed everything. A well-known rock photographer, Mark Weiss, recommended a young guitarist from New Jersey named Zakk Wylde. The moment Zakk walked into the room, it was clear he had exactly what Ozzy was looking for. His wild energy, blonde mane, and blistering playing style made him feel like the perfect fit for the Prince of Darkness. Pitrelli himself later admitted that when you compared the two, Zakk was simply the right man at the right time. Almost instantly, the search was over. Zakk Wylde got the call, and history was made. For Al Pitrelli, the door quietly closed, but instead of resentment, he took it as a sign. If his name had even been in the running, it meant he was playing at the highest level, and that realization was powerful fuel for what came next. Losing out on the Ozzy gig could have been crushing, but for Al Pitrelli it became something else entirely. Just being in the conversation gave him the confidence to realize he belonged at that level. He wasn't just another New York club guitarist anymore, people in the industry were paying attention. That near miss set off a chain reaction. Not long after, guitar virtuoso Steve Vai recommended Pitrelli as his own replacement in David Lee Roth's band. While that particular opportunity didn't materialize, the recommendation itself was proof that big names trusted his talent. Soon after, Vai pointed Alice Cooper in Pitrelli's direction, and Alice ended up hiring him as a guitarist and musical director. One door had closed, but two more opened almost immediately. And instead of looking back with regret, Pitrelli pushed forward, building a reputation as the kind of player who could step into any situation and deliver. In the unpredictable world of rock, that flexibility was gold. Missing out on Ozzy's band didn't slow Pitrelli down. It redirected him towards something even bigger. He went on to play with Alice Cooper, Megadeth, and Savatage, proving he could thrive in any high-pressure rock environment. But it was with Trans-Siberian Orchestra that his career truly soared. As lead guitarist and musical director, Pitrelli helped transform TSO into a touring powerhouse, blending intricate rock arrangements with classical storytelling, lasers, and pyrotechnics. What started as a missed opportunity with Ozzy became the foundation for a decades-long legacy, selling out arenas every holiday season and earning him recognition not just as a player, but as a visionary in modern rock. Looking back, that brief, almost moment with Ozzy became more than a near miss. It was the spark that fueled a career filled with creativity, collaboration, and enduring success. Al Pitrelli almost became Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist, a moment that could have rewritten rock history. Yet missing out didn't hold him back. It pushed him forward. That one brief encounter with Ozzy and Sharon, that phone call from Max Norman, and even the loss to Zakk Wylde all became stepping stones toward an incredible career. It's a reminder that sometimes the opportunities we don't get are just as powerful as the ones we do. For Pitrelli, being considered for Ozzy's band validated his talent, opened doors to legendary musicians, and ultimately led him to create a legacy that's entirely his own. In the end, the story isn't about a missed gig. It's about resilience, timing, and turning near misses into milestones. And for every musician chasing their big break, Al Pitrelli's journey is proof that the path to greatness isn't always straight, but it can be extraordinary. Stories like Al Pitrelli's prove that sometimes a missed opportunity can shape an even greater legacy. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden twists, near misses, and unbelievable moments that shaped rock history, hit subscribe and stick around, because the next story might just change the way you see your favorite bands forever.